The idol's glow slowly faded, but its presence lingered in the room like a storm that had not yet passed. A foul, metallic scent like rusted iron mixed with smoke hung heavy in the air. Jenkins's body lay still beneath the stone, his face twisted in a final grimace of agony, as though death had not released him fully. Henry forced himself upright, though his body trembled with weakness. The mark on his chest pulsed faintly, no longer searing, but still alive like a chain tied directly to the idol. He looked at his father with wide, horrified eyes. You gave it, my friend. You gave it a man who trusted us." Charles could not meet his son's gaze. His hands shook, his face pale, his lips trembling with words he could not say. Alina, still clutching Henry, turned her fury upon her husband. "Do you see what you've done? You've damned us all. The curse won't end. We'll demand more and more until nothing is left of us." Victor leaned against the desk, his dark silhouette outlined in the idol's faint glow. "Your wife is correct. The idol does not sleep forever. Tonight you fed it a servant. Tomorrow it will hunger again, and next time it may not be so merciful." Charles's voice broke. "There must be a way to end it, a way to destroy it." Victor's cold laughter filled the chamber. "Destroy it, foolish man. You cannot kill what was carved in shadow long before your name was ever spoken. The idol is eternal. The only choice is obedience or ruin." Henry clenched his fists, his voice trembling with both anger and fear. "If this is what my family's fortune was built upon, then it was never worth it. Better for Ravenwood to burn to the ground than for another soul to be fed to that thing." The idol pulsed once, as if mocking his defiance. A faint whisper stirred in his mind again, a chorus of voices layered atop one another. Blood remembers, blood pays, blood binds. Henry shuddered, pressing a hand to his chest. "It, Tease, speaks to me." Alina pulled him closer, her own face white with terror. "It's already inside him, Charles. Every moment we keep it here, it takes more of him." Victor's eyes gleamed, predatory. "Yes, the boy resists, but the bond grows stronger. When the time comes, he won't fight me. He'll come willingly. He'll beg to finish what his grandfather began." Charles slammed his fist against the desk, rage and guilt tearing through him. "No, I will find a way, even if it kills me." Victor only smiled, thin and cruel. "Perhaps it will." The fire suddenly roared back to life, filling the room with harsh red light. And in that moment, the Ashfords knew the idol was not merely an object, it was a predator. And they were already caught in its jaws. The flames in the hearth snapped violently, throwing jagged shadows across the steady walls. Henry rose unsteadily to his feet, his mother's hand clutching at his sleeve as if to hold him back. His chest still burned faintly with the cursed mark, but something new stirred inside him, anger, not fear. He fixed his gaze on the idol, its hollow eyes glowing faintly, its grotesque mouth twisted in that eternal scream. "You will not have me," Henry said, his voice trembling at first, then growing stronger. I will not be your sacrifice. Victor tilted his head, amused. Bravery or foolishness? The idol has already chosen you, boy. The mark proves it. You cannot defy blood, nor bargain with destiny. Henry clenched his fists. Destiny isn't written in stone, not even in that thing. Charles reached for him, his face stricken with panic. Henry, don't provoke it. But it was too late. The idol pulsed with a sickly green light, and a sudden gust of air swept through the chamber, extinguishing every candle in an instant. The only illumination came from the stone itself, its glow twisting across their faces like a living shadow. Then the voices began, whispering, hundreds of them, circling Henry's mind. Healed, accept, plead for us. The whispers rose into a shriek, piercing his skull. Henry staggered, clutching his head, but he forced himself forward until he stood directly before the idol. Is this all you are? He spat, sweat dripping down his brow. A rock that feeds on fear, the idol answered. The mark on his chest flared white-hot, burning as if his very heart were aflame. Shadows burst from the stone like smoke given form, writhing tendrils that lashed at him. One wrapped around his arm, another coiled at his throat. Alina screamed, "Henry!" She tried to rush forward, but Charles pulled her back. "Okay, no, you touch him now. It will take you too." Henry gasped as the shadows tightened, his knees buckling, but still he fought. With a desperate cry, he reached out and seized the idol in both hands. Stone was ice-cold and burning hot at once, its weight crushing, its whispers deafening. Visions surged through his mind, rivers of blood, towers of bone, endless generations of Ashfords screaming as their souls were swallowed into the stone. He felt his will tearing apart under its hunger, and yet he resisted. With every ounce of strength, Henry screamed into the void of its power, "I am not yours." The idol shrieked back not with sound, but with a vibration so violent it rattled every window in Ravenwood Hall. The glow sputtered, its light faltering. For the briefest moment, Henry felt the shadows recoil, withdrawing into the stone as if burned by his defiance. He staggered back, the idol slipping from his hands and thudding to the floor. His chest heaved with ragged breaths, the mark still glowing faintly but weaker than before. Victor's eyes narrowed, his smug composure cracking. Impossible. No one resists the stone. Henry wiped the blood from his nose, his lips twisting into a defiant grin despite his trembling frame. Then maybe I'm the first. The study fell silent, save for the faint hum of the idol as it lay on the floor. For the first time, it looked less like a god, and more like a wounded beast. Victor stepped out from the shadows, his calm mask finally beginning to crack. His smile was gone, replaced by a sneer sharp enough to cut stone. The faint glow of the idol reflected in his black eyes, but now something more stirred behind them, a depth far older, far darker than any mortal gaze should hold. "You think you've won something, boy?" Victor's voice rang low and venomous, laced with an unnatural echo. "You've merely delayed the inevitable. The stone chose you before you ever drew breath. Do you really imagine a few defiant words can unmake generations of blood. Henry steadied himself, his body trembling, but his eyes fixed on Victor. I don't care what the past was. Dance with me. Victor laughed, then a sound that seemed to shake the walls, a sound not entirely human. As it rolled through the study, the fire in the hearth erupted into a column of black flame, licking the ceiling with unnatural heat. Shadows writhed across Victor's skin, crawling like serpents beneath his flesh. And then, before their horrified eyes, he began to change. His figure stretched taller, his hands lengthening into claw-like fingers. His face seemed to blur, his features dissolving and reforming into something monstrous, black as void, teeth glinting like shards of obsidian. His coat split at the seams as dark tendrils burst from his back, writhing like the very shadows that had attacked Henry. Alina clutched her son tighter, her voice breaking into a sob. Dear God. Charles staggered back, his face pale as death. What are you? Victor's mouth twisted into a terrible grin. What am I? I am the Dragomir legacy incarnate. The pact that binds your line was sealed not merely with words, but with my family's blood, and my blood is not human. I am the collector, the keeper of the idol's hunger. Through me, the pact is eternal. The room quaked as his voice thundered, the chandelier swaying violently above. Books tumbled from the shelves, glass shattered, and the idol pulsed brighter, feeding on Victor's transformation. Henry forced himself forward, shielding his mother as best he could. His chest burned, the mark pulsing in rhythm with Victor's power. He grit his teeth, refusing to bow. I don't care what you are. You won't take me. You won't take anyone else. Victor's claws extended, the tendrils from his back coiling hungrily toward Henry. Brave words for a dying boy. But soon you'll beg me to end the pain. The shadows struck. They lashed toward Henry, tearing through the air like whips of living darkness. Henry braced himself, but Charles moved, first throwing himself between the shadow and his son. The tendril struck him full force, lifting him from the ground and hurling him across the study. He crashed into the shelves with a sickening thud, blood spraying from his lips. Father, Henry screamed. Victor only smiled, his monstrous form looming over them, his voice dripping with triumph. This house will fall, your bloodline will burn, and the idol will feast until nothing remains but ash. Charles groaned as he forced himself up from the shattered shelves, blood dripping down his temple. His ribs ached with every breath, but his eyes burned with grim determination. For years he had buried the truth, convinced he could outwit the curse, but now, staring into the twisted face of Victor's monstrous form, he knew there was only one path left to sacrifice. Stay back, Charles shouted hoarsely, stumbling forward. He placed himself between Victor and his family, spreading his arms wide as though his body alone could shield them. Victor's tendrils coiled and writhed, the glow of the idol intensifying at his back. How noble, Victor hissed, his voice now an inhuman rasp. But useless. You were never to bargain. Your blood carries no value. The pact demands your son. Charles steadied himself, gripping a shard of wood broken from the shelves. His hand trembled, but his eyes locked fiercely on Victor. Then take me in his place. I'll bind myself to the idol. I'll give it my life if it spares Henry. Victor laughed, hollow, bone-rattling sound. You still don't understand, do you? The idol doesn't want your life. It wants your bloodline. That is the bond. That is the chain. Henry tried to rise, his mother's arms holding him back. Father, no, don't. But Charles silenced him with a raised hand, his voice firm despite his trembling frame. Henry, this curse began with my father. It ends with me. Before Victor could react, Charles lunged forward, not at his son, not at the idol, but at Victor himself. With a raw cry, he drove the wooden shard deep into the monster's side. Victor shrieked, his form convulsing as black ichor oozed from the wound. For a moment, the tendrils recoiled, the idol's glow faltering. The entire study shook violently, as though the house itself resisted the strike. Henry's heart surged with hope. Father, but Victor's eyes burned brighter, his monstrous grin returning even through the pain. Fool, you think you can wound me? I am bound to the stone. As long as it endures, so do I. With a violent motion, Victor's tendrils lashed out, wrapping around Charles's body and lifting him into the air. Alina screamed, Henry struggling desperately to break free from her grasp. Charles gasped, struggling against the crushing grip. He turned his head toward his son, his voice breaking yet resolute. Henry, don't give in. Whatever happens, fight it. Don't let this curse own you. The tendrils tightened, bones cracking, the sound sickening. With a final cry, Charles was hurled against the stone idol itself. His body struck the relic with a thunderous crash, and for a brief, terrible moment, both man and idol glowed with the same horrific light. Then came silence. Charles's body slid lifeless to the floor. The idol pulsed brighter than ever, its scream echoing in the minds of all who remained, and Victor only grew stronger. The study reeked of smoke and blood. Charles's lifeless body lay crumpled at the base of the idol, its grotesque face glowing brighter than ever, as though it had feasted on his sacrifice. The mark on Henry's chest throbbed violently, tethering him to the cursed stone like a chain of fire. Lena's sobs echoed through the room as she clung to her son. It's taken him. It's taken everything from us. Henry's vision blurred with rage. He pulled himself free, his eyes fixed on the idol with a hatred that burned hotter than fear. No, he said hoarsely. It hasn't taken everything. Not yet. Victor loomed above them, his monstrous form pulsing with shadow, his tendrils spreading across the ceiling like blackened roots. His laughter rattled the shattered glass. Still, you resist? Haven't you learned? Every strike against me only makes the idol stronger. Your father proved that. Henry's fists clenched, his body shaking as the whispers of the idol clawed at his mind. He heard them clearer now, countless voices from across generations, all crying the same words. We are bound, we are blood, we are yours. But amidst the chaos, one thought cut through. This ends with me. He turned to his mother, his voice firm for the first time since the curse began. It's not Victor. We have to fight. It's the idol. As long as it exists, he'll keep coming back. The curse will never stop. Victor's smile faltered, his black eyes narrowing. Careful, boy. You speak of things you don't understand. Henry ignored him, stepping closer to the stone. Could feel its hunger gnawing at him, trying to pull him in, but he forced himself forward. You want my blood? Then take it. But you won't take another generation. You won't take another soul. Victor roared, his monstrous voice shaking the walls. If you touch it, it will devour you whole. Henry's hand hovered over the idol, his skin blistering from the unnatural heat radiating from it. Pain seared through his chest as the mark flared violently, trying to drag him to his knees. Alina screamed, "Henry, no, it will kill you." He turned to her, his face pale but resolute. "If I let it live, it will kill us all. Better it ends with me." For the first time, fear flickered in Victor's monstrous eyes. His tendrils lashed forward, desperate to stop Henry. But Henry's hand slammed down onto the idol. Shockwave burst through the study, shattering windows, toppling shelves, and sending Victor reeling backward with an inhuman shriek. The mark on Henry's chest blazed with unbearable light, as though his very soul was burning. Henry cried out, his scream mingling with the roar of the idol as cracks began to spiderweb across its surface. The cursed stone, unbroken for generations, had finally met its defiance. The idol's scream filled every corner of Ravenwood Hall. Its stone surface cracked and splintered. As Keena pressed his hand harder against it, the mark on his chest blazing like molten fire. Shadows poured from the fractures, twisting and writhing like serpents, shrieking as if being torn apart. Victor staggered, his monstrous form faltering. His claws clawed desperately at the air, his tendrils snapping like broken whips. "No," he roared, his voice echoing like thunder. "Without the idol, I am nothing. Do you hear me, boy? Nothing." Henry gritted his teeth, every muscle straining, his vision drowning in white-hot pain. Then disappear with it. With a final, earth-shaking crack, the Dragomir Stone shattered. A light, brilliant, searing, erupted outward, blasting through the study and into every corridor of Ravenwood Hall. The walls shook, portraits tore from their frames, and glass exploded in a rain of shards. The voices of the cursed bloodline screamed one last time before fading into silence. Victor shrieked as his body began to unravel. His monstrous form dissolved into smoke and ash, torn apart by the breaking of the bond. His final cry echoed with rage and despair before vanishing into nothing. Henry collapsed to the floor, the glowing mark on his chest fading into a faint scar. He gasped for breath, his skin cold with sweat, his body trembling from the effort. Alina fell to her knees beside him, clutching him with both arms, tears streaming down her face. "You're alive, oh God, you're alive." But the house was not. The foundations groaned as cracks split through the stone walls. The chandelier crashed to the floor in a burst of fire and smoke. Ravenwood Hall, the monument, 2 generations of Ashford wealth, was collapsing around them. Henry forced himself to his feet, half carrying his mother. Together, they staggered through the crumbling halls, past the bodies of fallen guests, past the ruins of everything they had once called home. At last, they burst into the cold night air, collapsing onto the damp grass as Ravenwood Hall roared behind them. Towers crumbled, walls split, and with a final groan, the mansion was swallowed into flame and ruin. Henry stared at the inferno, his chest heaving, his hand pressed to the faint scar where the mark had been. He whispered, almost to himself, "It's over." But deep inside, in the silence between his heartbeats, a faint whisper stirred. "We are bound. We are blood. We are yours." Henry's breath caught, his eyes widening as he stared into the flames. And for the first time, he wondered if the curse had truly been broken on, if it had only just begun.